Welcome, folks. This is a Jackson Jones special news report, and I am joined by a gentleman named Greg Tempke. Am I saying that correct?
Yes,
I got
you
it.
are.
Knocked that one out. All right. And all because there is something going on in the beautiful village of New Glarus that is very near and dear to my heart. Growing up as a Belleville resident that had a New Glarus address, I know the area very well. And I was also a former Little League player when I lived in Indianapolis, Indiana. So tell me what's going on in New Glarus right now that has pretty much the village semi-divided and some folks up in arms. What's going on?
You know, I would, I would say it's fair to say, Jackson, that the village is divided on this issue. And it does have to do with baseball, and it also has to do with political corruption. As is the case with you, baseball is near and dear to my heart. I coached Little League for 5 years, played men's fast pitch softball for a dozen years. I love the game, and I love the way it's being promoted in New Glarus. That's being threatened now because one of our two baseball/softball fields is threatened with going away to make way for a new library. And that library project, fundraising for that has been going on for about 6 years now. The fundraising efforts have fallen woefully short. Nevertheless, there are continued efforts, and recently those efforts have taken a nasty turn, Jackson, with some manipulated and falsified data being presented to the village board by the library board for the purposes of seeking the village board's endorsement and ultimately public funding and public property.
Why is it that they want to get rid of one of these ball diamonds? Is there no interest in the New Glarus area for the Little League? Is there no interest in the softball? Are the kids too occupied with their cell phones to get out and grab a glove and a baseball bat? What's going on?
Absolutely not. You know what? Baseball and softball are vibrant in New Glarus right now. We're a small community. Our population is under 2,200. But about 4 years ago, an association was started called the New Glarus Youth Baseball Association. It's a volunteer organization. They're doing a tremendous job. Right now, they have 225 kids, 225 boys and girls enrolled all the way from 3K through 8th grade. Each grade, 2 through 8, has at least one team. 7th grade has 2 teams. And in addition to that, on the softball side of things, the girls' softball side, that's really picking up steam as well. Right now, the 6th and 7th grade teams have nearly 30 girls that are out for softball. Obviously, that bodes well for the future of the high school program. Again, we're a small community, 2,200 people, and we have overall probably 300 kids involved in baseball and softball. This New Glarus Youth Baseball Association is doing a fantastic job. They're raising money. I believe I heard the other day that they're over $18,000 in fundraise.
Impressive.
They're seeking and getting donations of materials and donated labor to do what they can in terms of repairs to Glarner Park, the park that is under threat. They're rebuilding and renovating the dugouts. They're doing a fantastic job. There's ample interest in baseball and softball.
Why do they want to put a library where a ball diamond is? Why are there not other lots available in the New Glarus area? What is the reasoning on putting it in these specific locations?
Well, I'll give you a little backstory here, Jackson. This all has been going on for about 20 years, the drive for a new and improved library facility in New Glarus. And I'll be the first to say that the library that we currently have is inadequate. It's under 2,100 square feet.
I want to stop real quick.
Yeah.
There already is a library.
There is. But
they currently have a building full of books.
They have essentially a room inside the village hall. And it's inadequate. It's 2,100 square feet. We need a better resource in that regard. I don't think we need what is being promoted.
Yeah, if they already have one. Okay, so get back into why it is they need to put one. They feel they need to put one on this slice of property.
Well, being that you grew up close to New Glarus, you probably have some idea that we're a little bit landlocked. We're landlocked by bluffs and hills, farmland, et cetera, water. So there are some challenges finding land on which to expand. Right now, and I should mention, I spent 8 years on the village board, 5 of those as the chair of the Parks and Rec committee. So I have a pretty good idea of what our inventory of parks is. We have 6 currently. 2 of those currently house baseball and softball diamonds. And the library board has a vision of a standalone facility with green space around it, so on and so forth. That's hard to come by in a small community that's landlocked, as ours is. So 4 years ago, there was a botched two-part referendum that was put on the ballot. The first question was whether or not the village should borrow $1 million for the purposes of library construction. And the second question was to choose between one of two locations. However, you only got to vote on the second question if you voted yes on the borrowing. They ended up disenfranchising nearly half the voters who voted no on the borrowing question. Those folks didn't get to weigh in on the location.
Did they give a reason as to why it is they did that?
I have to rewind the memory a little bit. I opposed it at the time. It was, I believe, at the suggestion of village council or with the okay of village council that it was worded that way, and I believe it was probably under pressure from the library board that they only wanted the people voting on location who supported them. It sort of tilts the field a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, kind of does, just a smidge. Now, if someone was to say, why couldn't you just build another ball diamond? Why can't you put it somewhere? Are there other green spaces to put a ball diamond in New Glarus?
Really, there aren't. There is a barely adequate amount of green space in another of our parks, Veterans Park, which currently houses the baseball diamond. It also houses 4 tennis courts, a basketball court, an ample green space, and I think most importantly, the actual Veterans Memorial, which has been built and constructed over the last 6 or 7 years with tremendous effort from our veterans groups, fundraising. We had the Army Corps of Engineers come in and help out with some of that work, and they've put together a beautiful memorial. The suggestion is to move the softball field from Glarner Park to Veterans Park, of course, at village taxpayer expense. There's barely enough room there, Jackson, to cram a WIAA-compliant softball field into that space if we take away the green space, if we take away the tennis courts and basketball court, and if we encroach to within feet of the Veterans Memorial in Veterans Park. So barely large enough, a foot shorter, and that would not be a WIA-compliant field for purposes of holding playoff games. So is there another spot? Yes, but no. It's not a good one.
Now, I have to ask you this, and I have to play devil's advocate on this one here, to keep journalistic integrity. Belleville and New Glarus and Monticello share a lot of ball teams. Right down the holler is Belleville. Is there a reason why those ball diamonds aren't available?
Well, that's a good question. I'm trying to sort of think through. I believe that our sports co-ops, allegiances, are with Monticello, not with Belleville.
Okay.
Could the Belleville fields be made available to host New Glarus Monticello baseball and softball games? Perhaps something could be worked out between the villages, the school districts, whoever the ownership is of those ball diamonds. Perhaps they could. I don't know. I tend to think that the kids that live in New Glarus deserve to play home games in New Glarus. And, of course, when you have kids coming from Monticello, now you're talking about, 12, 13, 14-mile commute to get to your kid's 45-minute Little League game. I don't know if that's possible or not, but I don't like the option, to be honest.
Now, what's going on with this voting and this data manipulation? Is there what's behind this?
Sure. Well, I'll tell you that back in 2017, the library board embarked on essentially a data gathering campaign, ostensibly to find out what library services were most important to the community and how important the library was overall to the community. A big part of that data gathering campaign was a survey that they opened in early February. It received responses for a period of 10 weeks from early February through mid-April. On May 30th, the library board and the village board held a joint meeting, 6 weeks after the last of the responses came in. There were 119 total responses. We have no idea how many individuals responded because anybody was allowed to submit as many responses as they wanted. However, Via open records request, I found out that not only do they not know how many actual individuals responded, but they only reported to the village board the first 3/4, the first 75% of responses they received. And those responses were, as you pointed out earlier, essentially made by and large by the folks who are most passionate about a library. They omitted the last 25% of responses that gave the library services and the importance of the library overall a much lower score. Now, this library board, 7 people, includes 2 current elected office holders, 1 at least, and I believe 2 former elected office holders, and someone whose professional title is, I believe the term is data services consultant. They put out a survey that was unscientific to begin with, and then they manipulated the data. They presented that manipulated information to an arm of government seeking an endorsement and ultimately seeking public funding and public property for their project. To me, my opinion, that's fraudulent and that's corrupt.
That definitely 100% seems fishy.
You and I agree on that, but not everybody does. On June 26th, I met with representatives of the library board and the South Central Library System, and that meeting is videotaped. It can be found on the New Glarus Village website. And amongst other things, the library board president is on videotape stating that she believes the end, a new library, justifies the means that they've employed. She literally said that.
Why is it that a green space is important to them? I grew up in Belleville, and we got a very nice library, and it's got a parking lot in the back of it that we used to skateboard behind. We actually would use that, but there's almost no lawn there because we're not there to go to the park. We're there to look at books. So I don't understand why they can't pick a piece of real estate that doesn't have as much green space. Downtown Madison has some gorgeous libraries that are surrounded by cement. I don't really see what the correlation between books and grass is, but I do see the correlation between softball, baseball, and grass. So have they explained why it is that's important to have that specific slice of land? Because it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense.
You know, that's an excellent question. And I guess the best answer that I can give you is that there is a core group that has been focused on this project for so long, and what it potentially looks like has gone through many different incarnations. Right now, a couple of their driving forces are, number one, they want room to expand, supposedly, which I'll have to come back to actual money and fundraising in a moment. But they want to expand the 12,000 square foot facility that they've proposed. They want off-street parking. There would be a need for a detention pond to mitigate flooding issues that are very prevalent in that part of town. In past incarnations, they've talked about having gardens, walking paths, outdoor seating areas, et cetera, et cetera. So the vision has morphed over time, but they have a very grandiose vision, a champagne vision and a beer budget, and they haven't even achieved the beer budget at this point in time.
Are they building a library or a gazebo? I mean, because if you're looking for a gazebo fund and you want walking paths and creeks, okay. But if you want a library, I just don't really see what the purpose of that is.
Well, let's not give them any other ideas.
That's a good point. Yeah. Next thing you know, the tennis courts would be gone for gazebo space. Because you got to have somewhere to read those books that you check out of the library. Now, I don't fancy myself as always being the smartest man in the world, but I am an idea man. And I've got an idea, I think, that would appease everybody.
I'd love to hear it.
So how much money have they raised so far?
Well, they are currently 6 years into a 1-year fundraising campaign.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
and they've raised, as of May 31st, I believe the total was $838,000 of a previously stated $1.25 million goal. Again, they were supposed to have done this. Their goal was to break ground in spring of 2013. Here we are 6 years into that 1-year campaign. They're not yet 3/4 of the way there based on the latest reported numbers. Along the way, they spent over $110,000 on fundraising consultant fees, money management fees, advertising fees, and they've gotten about $9,000 of investment returns back over the course of that 6 years on balances that have averaged over $500,000.
So here's what I'm thinking. They got $800,000. Average price of an Amazon Kindle,
$120,
$120, $200 there if you want to get a nice one with the big Wi-Fi package. Maybe you upgrade the Wi-Fi inside the library. I say they take that $800,000 and buy a couple cases of Kindles. You can fill them with every book that's ever existed. Leave them right there. You don't need a new space, and it's something that kids will actually use.
I am all for changing with the times. From what we were talking about earlier, I believe you're about 15 years younger than I am. But when we were kids, our natural default when we had free time was to head outside, grab that bat, grab that glove, go play. We needed structure and resources in order to access information. It's flip-flopped 180 degrees now. Nowadays, kids, as you pointed out, they have any piece of information they want at their fingertips.
At all times. At all times.
Books, music, movies, at all times. What they need structure and organization for is like get them outside. That is so critical. We don't need the way technology, the way society is going, we don't need a big warehouse full of rows and rows and rows of bookshelves. We need to get our kids outside. We need to give the few people in society who may not have home access to data an opportunity to access that data. I agree with that wholeheartedly. I love your idea.
You know, I remember when I was a kid and we had to write a report, and let's say you had to write a report in high school, and you better hope to hell that nobody else in that class has a report that starts with RST, any of those letters, because you go to the library and those encyclopedias are gone. My daughter asks me questions. She'll be doing homework and asks me a question, and my number one response is, that sounds like an answer Google will have for you. Now, it's not because I'm lazy. I am, but it's not because I'm lazy, but it's because that information is right at our fingertips now. This is the world that we live in. This is what we wanted. We wanted to have information readily available. We've got plenty of that. What you can't learn from a book is team building skills. You can't learn how to go out and try. You can read about others that did that. You can't learn about being a core player in a team, winning together, losing together, fellowship and friendship. You can't learn about that in a book. You learn that by playing team sports. And I don't know about you, and maybe you're different, but when I was a kid, I had a lot of trophies and ribbons, and not a damn single one of them was for reading books.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. The 5 years that I coached Little League, the morals that we tried to instill in our players. Number one, if we put you on that field, I don't care if we're up 10 runs or we're down 10 runs, you go out and you give it your best effort and you have fun. Number two, you support your teammates no matter what. If your teammate boots a ground ball, nobody feels worse about it than that kid does. Right now, you support your teammates. Number three, you respect your coaches, you respect your umpires. If there's something that needs to be said to the umpires, we'll take care of it. We were teaching those kids, I believe, life lessons that only come from team sports.
Is there a website? Is there something people should look at if they want to be a part of this, if they want to support this, if they want to get behind this? What can somebody do?
You know, there are two Facebook groups that I would really encourage people to check out and to like and to follow. The first of those is the New Glarus Youth Baseball Association, NGYBA. Again, that is a very dedicated, very energetic group of volunteers that not only works on coaching and promoting baseball, but they're also working hard to raise funds. They're doing things like rebuilding dugouts, buying batting cages, pitching machines, so on and so forth. This is all done on volunteer time and effort. They're only 4 years old, but tremendous upward trajectory, and they're doing great things for baseball and softball in New Glarus. And then the second group would be the Save Glarner Park group. Glarner is Glarner. Save Glarner Park is currently 620 members strong. Neither of these groups is anti-library. Neither of these groups is anti-education, knowledge, information. We're pro-Glarner Park. We're pro-baseball, and we believe we need to find a balance.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time, and I appreciate you and the other folks of New Glarus doing this, and it shows the awareness and care, in your community. And I will say the folks on the library side, they have the same thing, but I feel, and once again, my opinion, we're allowed to have we're not allowed to have opinions so much anymore in this country, but my opinion is they're just slightly misguided on about where it is that they want to go. And if anybody says, well, how come you can't go to Belleville and use their softball diamonds? Well, why can't you go to Belleville and use their library? They got one too. So does Monticello. So the same thing goes for that. So I appreciate you taking time, and I appreciate you guys fighting what I consider to be the good fight for kids, who are like me. It's really, really appreciate it.
And I appreciate the opportunity and the help that you're giving us today in getting the word out. And we're going to put that opportunity to good use, and we're going to keep fighting that good fight.